Hello everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. So time of recording, it is Sunday afternoon, and I had previously said I was going to take the weekend off. I would record something on Monday for MCM London and the HASBRO Pulse 1027 event. However, there's actually a lot to go over. From what I was able to find for MCM and what they talked about for the 1027 event, there's a lot to go over, especially since I'm going to try and hit all of the highlights. I'm going to try and hit everything. So we're going to be talking about Star Wars. We're going to be talking about Marvel Legends. We're going to be talking about a update sort of background info on the Ghostbusters HasLab. We're going to be talking about Transformers, and we're going to be talking about G.I. Joe. So like I said, there's a lot to go over. Because of that, there will be chapters in the video so that if you check out down below, if you check the chapters down below, you'll be able to jump to whatever you want to see without having to sit through the entire video, because I have a feeling this is going to be a long one. I just started. I don't know how long, but I just feel like it's going to be long. Also, the other reason I'm doing this is because apparently everything, or pretty much 90% of everything we're going to be talking about, is going up for pre-order. So unless I say otherwise, just assume everything we're talking about is going up for pre-order on Monday, 10/28, the time this video is going to go up. And pre-orders will begin at 1 p.m. Eastern for premium members and 2 p.m. Eastern for everyone else. Pretty much everything we're going to talk about is going to be fan channel, so that even if it goes up for pre-order 1 p.m. on HASBRO Pulse, come 2 p.m. it'll be available for pre-order on places like Entertainment Earth, Amazon, Big Bad, places like that. The only ones that I think are a Pulse, HASBRO Pulse exclusive is one item for G.I. Joe, and I think one item for Transformers. And we'll talk about that when we get to them. So instead of doing MCM London first and then doing HASBRO Pulse 1027 event, I'm just going to wrap everything up so that like all of the Star Wars will be in one section, all the Transformers will be in one section, all the G.I. Joe in one section, etc., etc. So having said that, let's jump into it. And what we're going to start off with is the one that I actually have the least amount of information on, and that is Star Wars. I was not able to find anything for MCM London. I'm actually surprised that it's not getting as much coverage as I was expecting. There are very few images, at least from the sources that I go to, that I could find. There's very few images coming out for things like Star Wars. I found very little for Transformers. Most of what I was able to find was for G.I. Joe and Marvel Legends. But starting off with Star Wars, I have nothing for MCM London to talk about. However, what I do have is the 1027 event, and there were 3 reveals for the 1027 event. There may be a lot of jumps in this video because I have notes on the screen right here in case I missed or forgot anything. So there may be some hard cuts throughout this video as I go back and I try and correct things or if I missed things. But the first thing that we have is Star Wars Vintage Series, and we have one figure based off of the Acolyte and one figure based off of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. So the first one we're going to take a look at is the Acolyte. And I'm curious to see how this is going to go over since the Acolyte isn't getting a season 2. And from my understanding, this show wasn't very well received. I don't have Disney Plus, so I didn't get to see it, so I can't comment on that. But I do have a friend who is pretty much open to anything. And he watched the first 3 episodes and was just like, this isn't really going anywhere. But the figure that we have for the vintage line is Jedi Knight Yord Fandar. And they were very excited about this one because this is, I guess, the first figure from the High Republic era. And they were able to paint him, color him in the High Republic colors for the Jedi robes, which gave them a new color palette to play with, sort of like that cream coloring. So they were very excited about that. The likeness, the face sculpt on him looks pretty solid. Like I said, I didn't see the show, but I looked up the actor, and the face sculpt on this definitely has a very solid look for the actor that played him. He comes with a cloth goods, brown robe, a lit and unlit lightsaber, but I'm pretty sure all of the Jedi in the Star Wars collection come with that. The hilt clips onto the belt, and he comes in that vintage cardback packaging, and he is VC 354. I don't collect Star Wars vintage series. I don't know if those numbers are important, but they put them up there, so I figured anybody that's collecting Star Wars vintage series, you might want to know what the number is. So there you go. The next one we have is from the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Once again, don't have Disney Plus, didn't get to see it. There were some things I heard about it though that I wasn't too crazy about, but you cannot fault Ewan McGregor's portrayal of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And that is just what we are getting with the vintage line. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Jedi Legend. I love that title for him. And this is his new costume. This is the costume, I guess, from the series, where it's sort of like an in-between of what he was and what he's going to become. He has the white robes on underneath. The cloth goods robe that he wears is sleeveless, so it's very much more like a tunic looking thing. He has his lit and his unlit lightsaber. Once again, the hilt clips onto the belt, but the only other accessory he comes with is a set of goggles, and they showed it like around the neck, up on the head, and then down on the eyes. That's really the only accessory that he comes with. I don't know if these vintage figures typically come with a lot of accessories other than their weapon. And once again, vintage cardback packaging, and that is VC 357. I know it seems like I'm rushing, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot behind the vintage figures, and that's not a dig. I mean, they're 4-inch figures. They're made to be like smaller figures, less accessories. So there wasn't really much to talk about, although I do have to say, much like the, what was that, Yord Fandar figure, Obi-Wan's likeness here, like that is a great Ewan McGregor likeness, at least I feel like it is. The third and final reveal they have for Star Wars is for the Black Series, and I'm kind of digging this one. It is Black Series from the Clone Wars, Deluxe Savage Opress. And if this is the first time we're getting a Savage Opress, I'm actually kind of surprised that it is. I don't follow Black Series. I don't know if Savage has been out before, but they kind of made it sound like this was the first Savage that we're getting, because they also said it's the first Zabrak that they've done since Darth Maul. So like I said, I'm really surprised it's taken this long, because Savage is Maul's brother, later became his apprentice, was part of the Knight brothers, and I loved his story arc. Clancy Brown voicing him. I loved his arc. I loved his origins. I loved when he found Maul, and the two of them sort of became a duo that challenged Sidious and Tyrannus. I just really thought that was a great story arc. He looks fantastic. They mentioned that there is a lot of texturing to his armor, because like in the cartoon, it looked like he had very heavy textured armor, so they made sure to bring that into the figure. The skirting for him is cloth goods, so it'll get out of the way whenever you're posing him, whenever you're doing like a lot of like different leg movement, things like that. It is a fully new tooled figure. He's a head taller than a clone, so he's also like big and beefy. He has a dual lightsaber. They said the lightsaber does not split apart like Maul's does. It stays one piece. But he also comes with that big Horkin Vibro pike, which I vaguely remember him using that in the series. I think that's what he used before he was issued his lightsaber, if I'm remembering correctly. Please keep in mind, it's been like 10 years since I saw that episode. Can you believe how long ago that was? Anyhow, so he has his big Vibro pike. He has his double-bladed lightsaber. And here's a picture of him in the packaging. And he just looks beefy. He looks broad. He looks muscular. He looks like he's going to be bigger than Maul, which I think is also important because if I'm remembering the cartoon right, he was a full head taller than Maul, even though he was the apprentice and he was subservient to Maul. I love those two together. I almost might get this and then get a Maul. Right now, the only thing I collect for Black Series is the Knights of the Old Republic gamer figures. That this might make me change my mind. Because I have bought a few Black Series. I have Jaina, I have a Vader. I might get Savage and then later get a Maul and have the brothers set up there. I don't know. And that's really all they gave us for Star Wars. It was just those 3 reveals, 2 vintage, 1 Black Series. I've been getting the impression that the vintage series is selling better than the Black Series. If anybody watching this collects Star Wars, let me know, because it always seems like they have more vintage series figures coming out than Black Series. The HasLabs for the vintage series always seem to do better than the Black Series HasLabs as well. And speaking of the HasLab, there was no update for the Ghost. And I'm mentioning that because in the comments of the video, there were a few collectors that were kind of upset about that. I guess that we're waiting for the Ghost to start shipping, but there was no word on that. So speaking of HasLab, and I am the king of transitions with that, that takes us to the next one, which is we are talking about the Ghostbusters HasLab Ecto-1. Now, the video, when they were doing the 1027 event, they had the Yes Have Some podcast as guests, and they were talking about the HasLab. So Yes Have Some podcast crew was there, and they were asking questions that were kind of like, you know, they were the fan stand-ins. And honestly, a lot of the questions seemed scripted, predetermined. However, I will say that their enthusiasm about the project, their enthusiasm about Ecto-1, their enthusiasm about the figures was not fake. But there definitely seemed to be some stuff that was like, ask us this at this point type deal. So they had mentioned that there were 3 things that they took away about the Plasma series when it first started. We want Ghosts, we want Ecto-1, and we want Ghostbusters 2. And like we talked about when the HasLab came out, that's pretty much what they were trying to address with the Ectomobile HasLab. That they wanted to get Ecto-1 in there, they got the first set of Ghosts in there, and they got the Ghostbusters 2 Plasma figures in there. The only issue I have with this is traditionally when something comes out as part of a HasLab, it doesn't get released any other way. So if people still want, I mean, you're not going to please everybody, but if people still want the Ghostbusters 2 Ghostbusters, but they don't want to or can't afford to back the HasLab, are they not going to be able to get like those charcoal suits and the plasma throwers? So there was nothing about that. But let's see, what else did we talk about? The accuracy for the vehicle, they talked about that. They went into detail about that. The Hasbro team worked with a group called the Ectotech team to complete their research for the Ecto-1 HasLab, which they didn't really go into detail about that, and I don't know who the Ecto team is, but from what I gathered, context clues in the video, I'm guessing Ectotech is kind of like a fan group that pulls like blueprints of Ecto-1, does deep dives on Ecto-1, or basically just the technology of the Ghostbusters universe. So they made sure that they had every little thing that was missed in other products were included with the HasLab. So like if this bumper, they were talking about like, you know, this bumper is skewed just a little bit. They haven't done that with like other product, but they wanted to make sure that they hit it with this one. All the little details, all the little minutia, they really wanted to go in and make sure it was on the HasLab for both the Ecto-1 and the Ecto-1A from Ghostbusters 2. The Hasbro team stated that so much research went into this that their project designer, Aton, if he wanted to build a full-sized Ecto-1 in real life, pretty much nothing would stop him. That's how deep into he went into like how Ecto-1 was put together. Also, like we talked about, why there's two different tiers for this, sort of like an all or nothing tier. They did not want fans to wait for unlocks. That's why there's two price points. They wanted to have like this instant collection, this instant gratification, that if you wanted to back the HasLab and you wanted all of the figures, they didn't want fans to have the stress of, well, what happens if we only get like 2 or 3 of the Ghostbusters? What happens then? Especially going back to what we just said, that if something's in a HasLab, they don't really release it later. So they just wanted to have it be that, like, if you want Ecto 1 and you have your Plasma series figures and you're not really worried about Ghostbusters 2, because honestly, I don't think Ghostbusters 2 has as big of a fandom as like the original movie did, or maybe even Afterlife does. But if you just wanted Ecto 1, you could get Ecto 1. But if you wanted the whole package, you could just pay for all of that up front and just be like, here it is, and everything would come to you as one. They talked about the ghosts. They talked about the translucency for the library ghost, and they talked about Slimer. And the Yes Have Some podcast, they stated that, like, before they were called in to sort of sit in on this fan stream, that they had actually just done sort of like a deep dive, like the Slimers throughout the ages, like the different Slimers that have been released, for toys, statues, whatever, like just any like Slimer that's been released in media. And it just so happened that they did that like just before they got called in for this fan stream. And with having looked at all of that so recently, they said, they being Yes Have Some, said that they think that the Slimer that's coming with this HasLab is the best, most accurate Slimer that's been made to date so far. And they did a little spin of Slimer, and if I can get that clip, I'll put it up here, or even just a still, that when you spin Slimer around, Slimer's got a donk. So there's that. There's your little fun piece of information for the day. Yes Have Some also asked about the decals, the stickers, because what if like you have it as Ecto 1 and then you want to put it as Ecto 1A, and then maybe you want to go back to the regular. The Hasbro team said that they were in discussion about the stickers. They said currently the industry standard for decals is that they can be swapped on and off 5 times. And they said they're working on that. They're discussing the decals. What that means, they didn't really go into detail, but it sounds like they're trying to figure out a way if they can get more than 5 times per set, if maybe they will give more than one decal sheet, or if it'll be more like color contact, or like contact color forms or something like that, that they may not stick the best, but you can keep swapping them on and off. I don't know. They just said that they were talking about that. So it seems like they're aware that that's something that collectors might want to do, is just like swap from one to the other rather than just set it up as one version and then just go with it. I kind of wish they had thought about that before this, because I would love to like do multiple displays of my Sky Striker back there. But once you put those stickers on, the decals that came with the Sky Striker, that was it. That's pretty much how you're going to display it. And it's driving me crazy because I don't know if you ever noticed that the upright stabilizers, the black ones on the back of my Sky Striker, I screwed up the stickers when I put them on. The eagle stickers, that Sky Striker symbol, I screwed them up when I put it on. So I peeled them off and I tried to reapply them and it didn't work. And I'm kind of upset about that. I need some strike eagles for my Sky Striker. So let's get back on to the HasLab here. So they talked about the decals, and then they did go into 2 weeks to Tully, and that the Tully is the early bird special, that if it gets funded within 2 weeks, he'll be included with the HasLab. Right now, the 2 weeks ends on 11/2. So that is, I believe, this coming Saturday. Is that? Yeah, November 2nd is this coming Saturday. That's when the early bird special ends. And let me look up where we're at right now. Okay, so time of recording, we are at 7,167 backers for the Ecto 1. We are over halfway there to the 12,000 mark. We have a week left to go. The numbers have been gradually building. I think it's entirely possible that it's going to hit that 12,000 mark by Saturday. I think a lot of people are hemming and hawing and waiting, and I feel like Saturday might be like deadline time, where you just see a bunch of people on Friday and Saturday jump in. I'm not guaranteeing that, but that's kind of the feel I've been getting, because it hasn't stagnated. It's continued to climb each day. So if it keeps going on the trajectory that it's on, it looks like it's going to hit that target mark by the 2-week point. So that will be very cool for anybody that wants to back this. I'm going to be honest. When they were showing this and they showed the detail on it and just the size, I really almost jumped in on it. But the holidays are coming. I just backed the Rattler. Having a 1/12 scale Ecto 1, I would definitely just get the base model and not the full shebang. But having a 1/12 scale Ecto 1, there's so much you could do with that. That would just be awesome. But that's not in the cards for me. And speaking of scale, just to give an idea of the size, they did give a slight size comparison with what they were calling golden sponge cakes, which I'm sure they had to call it that because of legal reasons, copyright reasons. But I mean, come on. That Ecto 1's a big Twinkie. Moving on. So what do we have next? Set up next, we have Marvel Legends. Now, Marvel Legends, I did find things from MCM London, but we're going to skip over that because basically everything they talk about at MCM London, they also talked about in the 1027 fan stream. So other than some new info on the Sentinel and a render reveal for an upcoming figure, there's really not much to talk about from MCM London because they covered it in the fan stream. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Marvel Legends Brave New World wave, and that is for the upcoming Captain America movie, Brave New World. There are 3 figures coming out for that wave. They are 3 deluxe figures. We have Sam Wilson, Captain America, we have Red Hulk, and we have the new Falcon. So, taking a look at Sam Wilson, Captain America, he comes with his complete wings. That's important because the last time we had a Sam Wilson, Captain America, it was part of the Disney Plus wave, and his wings were the Build-A-Figure. You got the Sam Wilson figure, but then you had to buy the rest of the figures to get his wings for that figure, which I wasn't paying much attention to Marvel Legends at the time, but I would guess that kind of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. So he comes with his complete wings, he comes with the shield, he comes with the helmeted head, as well as just the goggles down, sculpted head, and he comes with an alternate set of hands. Red Hulk is a big beefy boy, another deluxe figure, a neutral and angry expression, so 2 different head sculpts, 2 pairs of hands, gripping hands and punching fists, and of course he has that awesome amount of chest hair kicking on him. And I believe he's a new sculpt. I don't think, obviously the face sculpts are new, but I don't know if they used a green Hulk and just repainted it. They didn't mention anything about that. My impression was that it's a new sculpt for Red Hulk, that it's not just a repaint of a green Hulk. I might be wrong. I'm not real into Marvel Legends, but I think the Red Hulk is new. I think he looks kind of cool. The other one is the new Falcon, and I have a feeling this might be the most exciting figure from this wave, that he comes with his fully closed and half open mask. He comes with Red Wing. He comes with his full set of wings, and his wings have handles built into the wings so that he can hold on to it and sort of wrap them around. I think that's kind of cool. You're going to get some good looks out of that, some old school comic book looks where Vulture would be grabbing onto the wings and positioning them and everything. I think that's kind of cool. And mentioning that both of them come, well, and that's everything for New Falcon from what I was able to tell. So 2 head sculpts, Red Wing, and his wing set. Oh, and Sam Wilson and the Falcon both come with separate backpack pieces so that you have a backpack to just represent when their wings are retracted, and then you have their wings for when their wings are out. The articulation on both sets of wings looks incredible. There's a lot of hinge points that you can get a lot of bending out of them. Like, there's a great shot, if I can get the picture up here, of like Sam crouched down and just completely like enshielded by his wings and the shield. I think that looks fantastic. And the wings are also ratcheted so that they'll hold pose whenever you like articulate them up or down. So there's a ratchet joint in there now as well. All 3 figures have been released as deluxe figures, and the reason they did that was when they were talking about this wave and they were discussing how we're going to do this, or we're going to do another Build-A-Figure wave, that they decided that if they did just regular figures and then did like a Build-A-Figure for either Wings or for Red Hulk, that they weren't going to have all the detail, they weren't going to have all the sculpts, they weren't going to have all the accessories. It wasn't going to have everything each figure needed to be unique, to stand out, and to represent what's going to be on the screen. So that's when they pivoted into having 3 separate deluxe figures come out for this wave. The next thing we're going to talk about is they discussed the Sentinel from X-Men 97 that has gone up for pre-order. I have to admit, this Sentinel is kind of cool. For a guy that doesn't collect Marvel Legends, I actually pre-ordered one of these Sentinels just because it's the Sentinel. It's a big killer robot and it looks awesome. And we're going to talk about it. The first thing they said was that supposedly with all the different pieces they have, the different head sculpts, the different blast damage, the blast effects that come with it, supposedly there are 8 different variations of this Sentinel that you can set up, which I question how different those 8 variations would be, but I do think it's pretty awesome that you have different pieces that you can swap out, some with battle damage, some not, and the blast effects, so that if you are somebody that is buying more than one of these to army build, maybe with your HasLab Sentinel, that they won't all look the same. You can have them in like different states of battle damage, or you can have them each having like their own unique look. I think that's pretty cool. I question, like I said, the difference between 8 different versions of this Sentinel, but it is cool that you can swap things out and do things differently. Speaking of the Sentinel, the HasLab Sentinel, they did say that there is some backwards compatibility with the HasLab Sentinel and this pre-ordered Sentinel, that the port in the hand is the same size as the HasLab. So you can take the tentacles from the HasLab Sentinel and pop them into the hand of the X-Men 97 Sentinel, and ipso facto, the blast effects that are coming with the 97 Sentinel will fit into the palm of the HasLab Sentinel. So if you wanted to do something where like you pop on the master mold head for your HasLab Sentinel and then army build the X-Men 97 Sentinels in front of him, you can do something like that, which I think that's kind of rad. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't go in on the HasLab Sentinel, but that definitely sounds like a plan. That sounds pretty cool. Having the tentacles, like having the palm effects swap out between the two, I think that's a really smart move. I think that's a nice touch. I think there are people who back the HasLab that will appreciate having that swappability, that compatibility right there. Also, gives you more options for your 97 Sentinel and your HasLab Sentinel. And as Robo says, options are always good. The articulation they discussed. They talked about the articulation and they stated that the Sentinel has 80 points of articulation. But then they also went on to admit that 50 of those come from the hands, 25 in each hand when you take into account the articulation of each finger. So They very tongue-in-cheek said 80 points of articulation, but then admitted that like 50 were in the hands. Speaking of the articulation, they mentioned that the prototype does not show a thigh break for a thigh cut or a thigh swivel. The finished product will have a thigh cut right there so that the leg will swivel. The torso, I don't know what this means, but Marvel Legends collectors will probably know what this means. They said the torso is going to work like the theatrical Doctor Strange figure, that it's going to be an inverted curve that goes into the belly. And then the belt is actually going to be a soft plastic material, so that the waist will be able to rock back and forth side to side, and like you'll get some teapot motion. You like that? You'll get some teapot motion from the waist so that he'll be able to bend and twist that way. They mentioned that they didn't want to break up the sculpt with an ab crunch like traditional Marvel Legends figures, or I think even Giant Man has that ab crunch right there. And truthfully, as somebody that's like a bit of an articulation junkie, for the Sentinel, I don't mind that the ab crunch isn't going to be there. It's a giant robot. It has stiff armor plates. Realistically, it wouldn't have that range of movement in the waist. A torso twist and some lean, sure, but like a full-on ab crunch, it wouldn't have that. So I don't mind that that bit of articulation is going to be taken out. Or not taken out, but isn't going to be there. They did mention that the details, meaning like all of the line work and the work around the neck, the details are sculpted and painted. So it's not just painted lines. These are sculpted details in the body. And they said that wherever there's a color break on the Sentinel, they're going to give it a different level of texture at each color break to give it a premium feel like the Sentinel and like Galactus. And I appreciate that. I think that's really cool. The more I'm hearing about this Sentinel, the more I'm liking it. And that's kind of why I backed it. $175. I mean, I didn't back the HasLab. I wasn't a big fan of the HasLab. Not that I think the HasLab is bad, but like when having read the X-Men in the 90s and been a fan of that era, when you say Sentinel, the HasLab isn't the image I have in my head, but this 100% is. Moving on. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. There are two more things to talk about. That there was a render reveal, actually, and they talked about teams and how they start teams and how people like to fill out teams, and they talked about their Cabal 3-pack and how Iron Patriot was there, and in that set, Iron Patriot was kind of a soft launch of the Dark Avengers team. So the first Dark Avenger that's coming out, and this was the render reveal, is Dark Avengers Warbird. And she looks great. Like, I know that's Moonstone, that's not Carol, but that looks great for that costume, that Ms. Marvel costume. I don't think she was called Warbird in that costume, other than when she was a Dark Avenger. That's built on their new super articulated female body. It's going to be a fan channel release, which means hopefully it's going to be easier to get than the Target exclusive Warbird. Still nothing on whether or not they're going to re-release that. I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the line they do re-release the Target Warbird as like a retro card figure. Marvel does that, right? Marvel Legends team does that, re-release things every once in a while on retro cards, don't they? Isn't that kind of what they just did with the Deadpool that I took a look at? So that'll be a fan channel release. And that is going up for pre-order on November 7th. This is one of the ones that's not going up on Monday, on 10/28. This is going up on 11/7, November 7th. They also hinted at that there are more Dark Avengers coming in 2025, so it sounds like they're going to start to fill out that team. Also, a little bit of a side note, I bought the Cabal 3-pack. I wanted Taskmaster and Doctor Doom. I don't care about the Dark Avengers. I don't care about Iron Patriot. So if you want Iron Patriot, and don't have and don't want to get the 3-pack, check out my eBay store. I'm selling my single variant of Iron Patriot. So if you want one, there he is. Shameless plug over. There was one other thing that they mentioned. This was just something that was dropped while they were discussing the Brave New World series, or Brave New World wave of figures, that they mentioned that the next wave, the next Build-A-Figure wave in Marvel Legends is going to be like, they said Marvel Red Brick. I have no idea what that means. Not only do I not collect Marvel Legends, I don't read a whole lot of Marvel comics. I'm more of a DC guy. So I don't know what Marvel Red Brick is. If that means anything to you, please comment down below. Let me know. I couldn't even find anything online like what that might be. So yeah, if you know anything, let me know. I'd love to find out. So Marvel Legends, coming out of Marvel Legends, will take us into G.I. Joe. And I know what many of you are thinking. You were probably expecting Classified to be the thing that closes out this video, because Classified is my bread and butter. It's where I live. It's my fandom. Normally that would be true. However, the news for Transformers was so big, pun 100% included, that I'm using that to close out the video. There's a reason that Transformers promo started this video. But jumping into G.I. Joe Classified, we do have some MCM London news for this one that was not doubled up in the 1027 event. First off, we had some name-only reveals, and these name-only reveals were all retro card figures, much like what we just saw go up for pre-order last week. And once again, I feel like these are some good choices for the retro card figures. That we have a retro carded Flint. I know a lot of people, a lot of collectors weren't real happy with the Classified Flint because he was a little too armored up. He didn't have, well, basically he didn't have that look, that same look that like Falcon has, where he's just wearing like his uniform, his beret. It's a little bit looser. His shotgun really raised some questions. A breech pump action, that was weird. So hopefully he'll get a different shotgun. Hopefully it's not the same one that comes with Flint. Or I mean with Falcon. So we have Flint for a retro card figure. The other name only reveal was the Televiper, which I think this is a very smart choice, because up until this point, the only way that we were able to get was the Televiper was with the flight pod, with the trouble bubble, and not everybody was able to get the trouble bubble. So having this as a retro carded figure so that people can get the Televiper if they missed him when the trouble bubble came out, this is also a good idea. I'm very curious to see how this is going to look as a retro card figure, because I thought the Televiper that we got with the trouble bubble pretty much was a decent representation of the vintage figure. I don't know if maybe the colors are going to be a little bit brighter like what they did with the Cobra Trooper, but I'm very curious to see how the retro card plays out. The last one is curious to me, that it's CoverGirl, and I guess they said specifically that it's going to be CoverGirl with blonde hair, but they also showed a picture from the Sunbow cartoon. So considering they're doing this mass device thing, I'm legitimately curious to see if this is going to be a blonde CoverGirl as we know her, or if this is going to lean more into the Sunbow version. Although I guess blonde is the Sunbow version. Like, I don't think she was blonde in the comic. I can't remember. I think she was more like auburn hair. Well, no, she is auburn hair in the comics. So, like, yeah, this would have to be like a Sunbow variant of a retro card figure. So they're crossing the streams, guys. We're getting retro carded figures in Sunbow coloring. That's going to be interesting to me. I'm curious to see how this is going to look. I'm curious to see if they're going to give her a whole new face sculpt. I might end up getting this one because I like the I like the general design of the CoverGirl figure that we've received already, but that face sculpt just doesn't work. Um, it and it's not even that like, oh, this isn't beautiful enough to be CoverGirl. It just looks weird. It looks disproportioned. It looks stretched. It kind of looks like an MC Escher painting to me in some ways. So I'm very curious to see if they change up the face sculpt of CoverGirl to go more along with the Sunbow cartoon, and if they're going to try and fit it into like this mass device thing that's going on right now. I'm very curious about this. I'm kind of excited about this because, like I said, the mass device figures are kind of like leaning classified into the Sunbow line. So I'm curious to see where they start going with that. That was our name only reveals. We also had 2 render reveals, and one is the Frag Viper, and I think we've had a name only reveal of the Frag Viper way back, maybe like around San Diego Comic-Con. Was that when we got the Frag Viper? Or was that Footloose? I can't remember, but I feel like the Frag Viper was mentioned a while ago. So here we have a render reveal, and the figure looks good. It looks okay. To be completely honest, the Frag Viper was never on like my top 10, and it wasn't even like a figure that I was really excited about in the vintage line. He's very unique though, so I can understand people wanting to get him. He's another Cobra Army builder. Fans seem to really like that. So you have the Frag Viper in all of his orange glory. He has a backpack that looks like is what carries the grenades. He has the twin micro Uzis that come with Shockwave. He has that highlight grenade thrower with a grenade belt that it looks like there's a belt that connects from the backpack to the grenade thrower, that it kind of like feeds grenades into it as he throws them. And then you have like a thrown grenade blast effect to go along with it. So all in all, I think it's a solid figure. Definitely not one that I'm going to be running out there to get, but I understand the Frag Viper has its fan base, and I think this is a really good representation of that figure in classified form. Now, a figure that I am excited about is the next render reveal that we had, and that's Blowtorch. I was way more into Blowtorch when I was a kid than I should have been, mainly because of the colors, mainly because of how unique that body was, that big puffy like flame trooper suit that he wears, that insulated suit, the oxygen mask, everything was just all enclosed, the yellow and red coloring. I was really into Blowtorch as I was a kid, and I am really excited about this one. The colors on this, being a render only reveal, the colors on this look awesome. There's nothing about whether or not the helmet and the oxygen mask come off. I have no doubt that they're going to. The helmet looks like the helmet that we got with Rock and Roll. The oxygen mask looks like it might be a modification of the oxygen mask that maybe is coming with Ripcord and the Halo jumper. And the whole thing I love. Obviously, there's a lot of reuse from Torch right here. That the backpack, the fuel line, and the flame effects are all reused from Torch. However, the flamethrower weapon is new. So I'm digging that. I think that looks really good. And yeah, I love the look. I love the colors. I can't wait for this one to come out. And then there was a figure reveal. There was 2 figure reveals, but we're only going to talk about one for MCM London, and that is Heavy Duty. And once again, I'm still not really excited about Heavy Duty. I wasn't excited about him in the vintage line. However, my issues with it aside, I think the people that are fans of Heavy Duty are really going to like this. Like if we look at this, if we look at this, I don't know, to me it looks like that rig is like sagging, that like it's sitting too low. I feel like it should be raised up a little bit higher. The thing that I do like and that I'm curious about is you see those quad rocket launchers on either side of his rig, how they pivot. I'm really hoping those pop off, because if those do pop off, then it would give somebody like me a chance that like if I have this figure, I don't have to pose him with that full rig, that you can just give him the quad rocket launcher and heavy duty can just be like another heavy ordnance figure like Zap, like Bazooka, like Short Fuse. Two of those we don't have yet. Um, so that's what I'm kind of hoping. Also, like the other thing with that rig, he has those twin micro guns coming up off of his shoulders, and he's just wearing a backwards baseball cap. My man's gonna go deaf. Like that's just too much. It's just too much for me. But like I said, he has his fan base. I know there's a lot of people that have been wanting to get heavy duty. I know there were people that way back in Wave 1 were picking up the Cobra Island roadblock with the big beard and customizing that and using that for heavy duty, along with that big rail gun that he comes with. The other figure reveal we had at MCM London was Nemesis Immortal, but we're not going to talk about that in this section. We're going to jump ahead to 1027 because that's kind of the only thing they talked about at 1027 is Nemesis Immortal, or if you've known him as long as I have, Nemesis Enforcer. So the first segment of the G.I. Joe section of 1027, which they used to start the 1027 event, was Lenny and a segment from an interview that he had with Josh Williamson, who is a writer from Skybound and is working on the Energon G.I. Joe title. And he was talking about how when they found out that they were going to be using Cobra Law, he was really excited about this, that the Cobra Commander series, which I flipped through but I didn't get it, they were really leaning into like this horror monster movie type feel for the Cobra Commander miniseries, because it was like, I guess Cobra Law was a big secret that they, I mean like to the readers, to the fans, that it was a big secret that they were using Cobra Law, so that when there was the big reveal and they were able to sort of like do this monster reveal with Nemesis Immortal, that it was a big moment in the comic. So this version of Nemesis Immortal, oh, and the interview with Josh Williamson went longer than like the little 5 or 6 minute clip that they showed in the 1027 event. They said that interview is up on the Hasbro Pulse YouTube channel. I haven't watched it yet. I haven't seen it yet, but I'll look for it. And if I can find it, I'll put a link to that in the description as well, so you can click on that and check out that interview. Now, Nemesis Immortal. Excuse me, I need a drink. There, that's better. Been doing a lot of talking. Now, Nemesis Immortal. From what I gathered, they called this their 1027 Pulse exclusive. So while they never actually said that it's a Hasbro Pulse exclusive, I think it is a Hasbro Pulse exclusive, because they didn't talk about it being available at fan channels. They didn't talk about it having like a shelf time. They just said this is going up for pre-order on 10/28, 1 p.m. for Pulse Premium members, 2 p.m. for everybody else. So I fully believe this is a Hasbro Pulse exclusive. So take that information as you will. He's a big chunky boy. Like, we knew he was going to be big, but seeing him in Lenny's hands, and Lenny's a big dude, he looked big even in Lenny's hands. And Lenny was really, really excited about this. Also, Emily was the one that was hosting the 1027 event, so it was really cool to see those two back together. I guess Emily got promoted, that she like is a higher up for marketing now, and she doesn't just work for marketing for G.I. Joe. So I kind of miss these two together. It was cool seeing them together again. But big chunky boy, Hasbro Pulse exclusive, as far as I can tell. Multiple texturing on the figure, which, just like with the Sentinel, that's going to give it like a real premium look, a real premium feel, that it's just going to have so much different texturing, so many different paint apps. It really is a great figure. And this is coming from somebody who's not a fan of Cobra Law. I mentioned this, I believe, during the Cobra Commander Once a Man review, that I am not a fan of Cobra Law. I'm not a fan of Cobra Law being part of G.I. Joe lore. But as a concept and a fan of monster movies and monsters like this, I do like the concept of Cobra Law. Hidden in the Himalayas, lost society, been there for ages, coming out of hibernation, just like this force to be reckoned with, this bioorganic tech that they have, which I don't care what anybody says, to this day I still believe inspired the Yuzef Vong from the Star Wars novels. And this is a fantastic looking monster. One thing that I like, that I wasn't expecting, that I really dig, is that he comes with his wings. We've seen him with his bat wings, but he also comes with those tentacles that the original vintage figure came with, that you could swap out the bat wings for the tentacles. Now, the tentacles, which is a cephalopod, and we'll talk about that in a minute, those tentacles all have a bendy wire in them, so you'll be able to position them and pose them independently of each other. Love that. Now, Lenny did call this a cephalopod, because the idea is that this, the tentacle thing, is kind of his pet. It's a semi-sentient, and I shouldn't say semi-sentient creature, but like, it's a living creature in and of itself that will just attach to Nemesis Immortal, and he can control it that way. The same thing with the wings, which, like, they were trying to think of a thing to call it, and I guess they finally settled on Bat Crab. But like, they showed a picture, and if I can find it, I'll put it here from the fan stream, that like you can set it up so that like that crab bat thing can walk on its wings, kind of like a House of the Dragon. So the idea that these two backpacks are not part of his armor, and they're separate living things that Nemesis controls, I really like that. I really dig that. I think that is a great, great idea. And they also talked about how, I guess this is shown in the comic, but how like Nemesis can control his armor and he can grow chitin as he needs it. That's why he comes with two head sculpts. One that just has like that sort of like pinkish covering to his head, that coif to his head that we know from the vintage line. But then there's another one that's more armored up, like he grew bones. He just like forced bone and stuff to grow for more head protection. I think that's really cool too. This is one of the things, this is one of the aspects that like I actually, in my head, when I was a kid, this is how Cobra Law operated, that everything was alive. Their armor was alive. Their weapons were alive. I love that, like, this idea I had as a kid that I was using for Cobra Law is coming into play for the modern interpretation of them. I'm really digging that. Let me see, what else do we got here? Oh, and the swords and those sheaths. This is also a really cool touch that, like, on the vintage figure, there were these, like, just white things on Nemesis's thighs. And they never really explained what they were, and they did look like pouches more than something that was part of this, like, living armor type thing that he had. And that's where the inspiration for the sheaths came from on the classified figure, as well as the twin blades that he carries. Now, what's cool about it is, just like anything else for classified, you can see, you would probably be able to slip those right off. So if the only weapons you wanted Nemesis to have were his wings, his tentacles, and his elbow blades, you can do that. Or you can have him dual wielding. I think it looks really cool. I do think it looks really cool, like when he's holding a sword out and the blade is going out one way and then the elbow spikes are coming back another way, kind of giving you that look that Helix had with the swing arm blades that she has, which I still don't get those. But kind of the same thing, but in like an organic state rather than technology. Yeah, and that's really it for G.I. Joe. They really didn't discuss much. I was kind of hoping they would at least go over the render reveals from MCM London, talk about the Frag Viper, talk about Blowtorch, or even talk about Heavy Duty, since I'm pretty sure he's coming out for pre-order. What was it, the 18th or the 19th? I think he's going up for the 19th. Give me 1 second to double check. Yeah, it's the 29th. I realize I just said the 18th or the 19th. I apologize. I meant the 28th or the 29th. So everything we're talking about here, including Nemesis, is going up for pre-order Monday, the 28th, 1 p.m. premium, 2 p.m. for everybody else. But then at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Tuesday the 29th is when Heavy Duty is going up for pre-order. So with that, I'm genuinely surprised that they didn't talk about Heavy Duty. So that's all we have for G.I. Joe. And now we go into Transformers, the one that we're ending the show with. And I have some MCM London images to take a look at. I don't have much on them. However, there were pictures and video on tformers.com. It looks like they actually had somebody there and he was shooting video of the cabinets. That's also where I got these photos. So credit where credit is due. Those come from Tformers page. I will leave a link to that article in the description below as well. Check that out if you're a Transformers fan, because not only are the photos posted there and a little bit of like a write-up, but there are multiple videos of them being at MCM London and basically just covering everything that was coming out for the Transformers. And they'll probably be able to explain these much better than me, because not having collected Transformers in a while, I know there are some reissues here and there are some new stuff, but I don't know how long waited some of this stuff was. So first thing that we have a picture of is this, which is the Leader Class Rise of the Beasts Ape Link. And I don't know about Ape Link. I didn't see Rise of the Beasts. I thought that was Optimus Primal. And I think Primal was in the movie and Ape Link was in it as well. And I think Ape Link predated Primal. So I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that we are getting a Leader Class Rise of the Beast Ape Link. There are 2 Bumblebees coming out. 2 deluxe Bumblebee figures. I don't know what the difference is. One is 116 and one is 117. That's number in the line. And it looks like the 117 has some sort of bladed forearm, but I don't know what the difference is other than that. Like what the difference is between 116 and 117. Maybe the bot mode is different. I don't know. I apologize. I don't know enough about the Transformers line to be able to comment on that. We're also getting a deluxe Dark of the Moon Q. We are getting a deluxe War for Cybertron Ironhide, which the timing on this, these are all render reveals, by the way. I don't think these were figure reveals. I think these were render reveals. But the War for Cybertron Ironhide, perfect timing there because we just had the Thundercracker Seeker come out. We also have a Leader Class Age of Extinction Optimus Prime coming out, which when I saw the picture of that, it was hard for me to pick him out because I forgot Age of Extinction Prime was more blue than red, and with his arms together holding that big claymore, it kind of blocks the little bit of red that is in his shoulders and in his chest. So we have our Age of Extinction Optimus Prime. We have a Voyager class Revenge of the Fallen Optimus Prime reissue that is coming out. We have a deluxe 1986 Jazz reissue that is coming out. And we have a Leader Class Dark of the Moon Shockwave that is coming out. Yeah, Shockwave. We have a Leader Class Dark of the Moon Shockwave reissue that is coming out. I apologize. That's really all I have. I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the video. That seems so long ago at this point for me. But I'm really surprised at how hard it is to get any information out of MCM London. I'm surprised, like Hasbro, nothing on YouTube, nothing on their socials, and you kind of had to like really dig and scrounge to get the information that we got. Like I said, I don't know much about the Transformers line. I do know these are the render reveals or the reveals from MCM London. And once again, pictures and video of the event on tformers.com. Link to that in the description below. Now we get to what we did talk about at 1027, and this I have more information for you. That the first thing we looked at was Megatronos. And look at this guy. Look at this madman. This looks awesome. This is from the Age of the Primes. It is the first of the 13 primes. So they're doing all 13 primes. One, I'm impressed that they're doing all 13 primes. Two, I'm kind of surprised it's taking them this long to do all 13 primes. So Megatronos does come with his Requiem blaster. It has his unique ID symbol from the Power of the Primes on the blaster. His tank mode looks insanely awesome. And I kind of like that the tank mode for Megatronos is closely resembling sort of like the tank mode for Megatron, because we know Megatron sort of revered this guy. So I like the idea that like Megatron's tank mode was based off of Megatronos. Those flame blast effects are nuts. They look great on the figure, but if you see the artwork that they posted for Megatronos as well, it just makes him look like he's this transformer that is just like fueled by hellfire. It looks awesome. You can see like flames coming up from behind the grill in his mouth. You can see the flames coming off of him. Like his energon is so chaotic and so powerful that he just bursts into flames. Now the flame effects that plug in use the, what is the 5mm? Use the same 5mm peg that the blast effects for pretty much everything else Transformers works on. So you can take those flame effects and plug it into the barrel of the Requiem blaster or into the barrel of him in tank mode, which is really cool. This is the other one that I'm not entirely sure if this is a Pulse exclusive or not. Because when they were talking about it, they were talking about it going up for pre-order on Hasbro Pulse, 1 p.m. premium members, 2 p.m. for everybody else. But they didn't mention it being like a fan channel release or a Famazon release or it being available in Walmart or Target or anything like that. They just said Hasbro Pulse. But they also didn't say it's a Pulse exclusive. So I apologize. I can't tell you with certainty whether this is a Pulse exclusive or not. It's my understanding that it is, but I might be wrong about that. Now we get to the big news, the news that started this video, the news that's the reason we're ending with the Transformers, and that is Devastator. We have finally had some looks at Devastator. I believe they've been promising that since San Diego Comic-Con, and we even had 2 of the figures to take a look at. And the first one we have is Voyager class Scrapper. When they put this up, the first thing they said was, this is not the final. This is like EP2. The colors are not where they are, and they're looking to punch up the greens more. These are still prototypes. Scrapper and Mixmaster are both going to be Voyager scale so that they can support Devastator's weight. This was due to them not wanting to use the same frame system that they used on Menasor. And they showed Menasor, and I don't know, I get why they did that frame forming for the combiner, but if I was a Transformers collector and we had Menasor, that's kind of a cheap out. I don't know, that's not how I would want my combiner to look. Devastator here looks like how you would expect Devastator to look, especially in like the new style of Transformer. So they don't want to use the frame system for Menasor. They also drew attention to the fact that Scrapper has elbows this time. I guess the last time we had Devastator, Scrapper didn't have elbows, so they brought attention to he has elbows. So with being Voyager class Scrapper and Mixmaster, they're larger. They have the base, the foundation to form Devastator's legs. They also have some ankle pivot going on in there, but they're going to be beefy enough, chunky enough to support the weight of Devastator without having to use that frame system. The other one that we took a look at was Bone Crusher, and Bone Crusher is a deluxe scale figure, also an EP2, and his elbow joint, his connector, is built into the figure. They showed, if I can find it, I'll put that image up here, that they showed the back of Bone Crusher, and you can see the socket that plugs in for the the elbow joint of him. So that's cool. They said both are essentially the same size as Voyager, Ironhide, and Ratchet. Scrapper comes with his pistol, and he also comes with Devastator's big gun that separates into two pieces, so you can actually mount it as two different weapons on Scrapper in vehicle mode. And Bone Crusher pretty much just comes with his blaster pistol. They also showed the new window boxing for Transformers. They were prototypes. There's a picture of it right here. Hopefully I can find it, but here's what the new packaging is going to look like. I don't know what the issue with Transformers packaging was, but hopefully this is what y'all want. Yes, no? Let me know. Comment down below. And then they did something that I thought was cool, that they showed a milestone slide, and we're definitely going to put that up here. Now, they put 3 different milestone slides. We're going to put the final one up here that has the release and price for all 3 waves of Devastator. So in April, we're getting Deluxe Bone Crusher and Voyager Scrapper. Deluxe Bone Crusher for $24.99, $25. Voyager Scrapper for $34.99, $35. It's important to note that these dates are the release dates. These are when they'll be on the shelf. Currently, Bone Crusher and Scrapper are going up for pre-order on 10/28, on Monday, day that you're probably watching this. So they are up for pre-order now. That April date is when they're going to be released, put on the shelf, when they'll probably start sending out pre-orders. I'm assuming it's the same for the next 2 waves. They didn't talk about pre-order dates for the next 2 waves, but I'm guessing there's going to be a pre-order window, and then there's going to be, this is when they'll hit the shelf. So in July, we have Voyager Long Haul and Voyager Hook. That's a 2-pack, and that's going to be $89.99. That's going to be $90. And we're going to talk about that, because that is more expensive than just 2 Voyager figures. But what they stated was that, like, because of Devastator's nature, Devastator is very much like a kibble combiner, that there's a lot of extra pieces that you need to form Devastator that aren't part of the Transformers themselves. This 2-pack is going to include all of that kibble. So you're going to have, You're going to have Long Haul and Hook, but you're also going to have everything that you need to form Devastator in this 2-pack. They also alluded to that it's not just going to be pieces, that it sounds like the chest piece, the arm pieces, the hands, basically everything you need to form Devastator is going to have a secondary form, because they had talked about what they were going to do with all of this kibble, and they, during the live stream, or during the fan stream, they had mentioned that they were looking at like photos and saying, well, here's a dump truck hauling a trailer, maybe we can do something with that. So it looks like all these additional pieces are kind of going to be like Prime's trailer, that they'll have their own alternate form. Don't hold me to that. I'm speculating on what was said during the fan stream. So, but if that is the case, I think that's going to be really cool, that they have found a way to incorporate it and give it an alternate form, so it's not just these additional pieces you're going to have laying around. I'm actually very curious to see how that's going to work. I'm excited to see that. So that is why that is going to be a $90 2-pack. That is going to be released in July. Then comes September, we have a Deluxe Scavenger and a Voyager Mixmaster Deluxe Scavenger for $24.99, $25, and a Voyager Mixmaster for $34.99, $35. Two individual releases in September. So their goal is to have all of this released on the shelf in your hands by the end of 2025, so that you will have Devastator by the end of 2025. During this fan stream, they admitted that Menasor was a mistake, that there was a failure in how they released Menasor, and they don't want to do that again with Devastator. That Menasor, and I didn't know this, was spread out over 2 calendar years. That would have driven me crazy. And apparently there was an issue with Breakdown, that not everybody was able to get Breakdown. And they even said, you know, we're not going to have another Breakdown issue. So they want everything to come out in 2025. They want you to be able to get everything in 2025. They want you to be able to form Devastator in 2025. And that takes us into, they talked about that in 2025, there's going to be kind of a shift in how they release figures, Studio Series figures anyway. They were speaking specifically about Studio Series figures when they were talking about what we're about to talk about. So I don't know if this is going to cover everything that they release for Transformers. But in 2025 for Studio Series, they're going to be going from 4 waves to 3 waves of figures. What this is going to do is it will extend the shelf life of each wave from 3 months to 4 months, or from 3 months to 4 months, to give you more time to get the figures in your collection if you're not pre-ordering things. This also means that the Studio Series going forward will have 0 repeat characters. And I guess they used Bumblebee as an example, that when there was Rise of the Beasts came out, that there was a Bumblebee in that Studio Series wave, and then later that same year there was another Studio Series wave that had another version of Bumblebee, that they're getting away from that, having duplicate figures throughout a year. Having said that, they also said, and they really wanted to drive this point home, that once Wave 1 of Studio Series goes up, the Constructicons that are in Wave 1 will not be re-released with Wave 2 or Wave 3. So you have to get the Constructicons. There's a timetable basically on this, and whether or not they stay on the shelf, who knows. This has been highly sought after. I know this has been something that Transformers fans have been chomping at the bit for, waiting for. So I don't know if I would put much trust in that these are going to stay on the shelf long. But they were very clear about, once something goes up as part of a wave, it will not be re-released. Wave 1, Scrapper and Bone Crusher, if they sell out, they sell out. Wave 2 is just going to be that 2-pack with, who was it, Long Haul and Hook. Then once again, when that sells out, it sells out. And then Wave 3 will just be Mixmaster and Scavenger. So keep that in mind while you're planning this out if you're looking to get Devastator. What else did they say here? Bone Crusher and Scrapper going up for pre-order, 10/28, 1 and 2 p.m. Oh, and this was also something that they had mentioned. There is no immediate plan to do a Devastator 2-pack. They said that it would probably be 2 years before they even start thinking about doing something like that. So if you were planning on waiting it out and waiting for like the big gift pack to come out with all of the Constructicons and Devastator, keep that in mind. They're not saying it's not going to happen, but it's going to be at least 2 years before they even think about doing something like that. And they took a long moment to acknowledge that Menasor, the release was a failure, the rollout was a failure, the way that he combines with that shell forming type thing, with that frame forming, was a failure as well. And then to put everybody at ease, they wanted to show as much as they could. They showed this, a gray model of Devastator, and they set it up next to Prime and they set it up next to Menasor to give you an idea of what you're getting, how big this is going to be. He's bigger than Menasor. I think that's awesome. So this is the look, this is the size. This is the scale he's going to be. You can see they sort of kicked one leg out. Keep in mind, this was a gray scale, or this was a gray prototype, so all of the articulation probably wasn't there. But I think it's cool that they kicked one leg out to show you how the ankle, it does have ankle pivot like that. I dig that. So that's essentially a preview of what you're going to get when it's all said and done. The greens are going to be kicked up. Tell me what you think. Is this what you've been waiting for? Does this meet your expectations? I know it was a real sticking point when there was nothing from San Diego Comic-Con, nothing from PulseCon, and nothing from New York Comic-Con about Devastator. So I hope this answers all of the questions. And everything I just communicated to you is pretty much everything that they communicated about Devastator. I took detailed notes on Devastator here because I had a feeling that for Transformers fans, that was going to be the one that they wanted to know the most about. And then finally, just to wrap this whole thing up, they did hint that there is another combiner in the works, that they're going to be working on another one in 2025 while Devastator is going up for sale. Personally, as a non-Transformers collector, I think at this point you got Menasor, you got Devastator. I think it would be cool to have an Autobot Transformer, maybe the aerial bots. That would be really fly. I think that could be a cool one to do. So you have that to look forward to as well. And that, my friends, is that. That was everything we had to go over. I do apologize for not being able to find anything for Star Wars MCM London. I honestly don't know if they revealed much of anything at MCM London other than maybe talking about the stuff that we released or that we talked about today. I apologize that I wasn't able to find much information or give much information about the Transformers MCM London reveals. Once again, I will leave the link to T-Formers in the description below. They did videos. They would be able to tell you much more than I could, so check that out. We are in the final week of Bricktober. Remember, on Halloween, we're going to be doing a special Thursday night, Friday night game night that we are going to start our journey with Hero Quest. So I'm looking forward to that. And we will have more coming up this week. Remember that on the 29th, we have the pre-order for Heavy Duty. And we're going to be taking a look at a dragon later this week. And if I get the time, we're probably going to close out with either something from Night Force, which will be the fallback if some things that I ordered won't be here in time. But there is something coming that I'm hoping will be here before the end of the week. But I do have a backup in case it doesn't arrive. So stay tuned for all of that. Thank you for joining me. This has been a long one. Thank you for sticking around. Don't touch that dial. Before you go, please remember to do all the YouTube things like share, comment, subscribe. If you already are a subscriber, what a legend you are. If you like what we do here and you want to help the channel grow, please consider becoming a member, whether through YouTube memberships or our coffee monthly subscription. Links to that in the description below. Both of them for $1 a month, you can get access to exclusive content, such as our monthly member exclusive video. This month is the Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Series Stinger. So until next time, my friends, play well, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.